Today on the morning show, we have a little fun with Randy Plunket, who's been on the program before, but by phone. We got him to drive in from Arena today to talk about what he does and the nostalgic musical journey that he can take you on. Good morning, Randy.
Hey, good morning, Phil. Great to be here.
Nice to have you. I love your shirt. Our listeners and the audience can't see
it. This is my winter tuxedo shirt that I put on.
You got a bow tie right on there and everything. I need me one of those. So you have been performing for quite some time. I know we had you on the last time. You were talking about performing at the Richland Area Farmers Market.
Right, yeah. I did about once a month there for 2 years, and hopefully I'll call and go back again this year. Just did it for fun and, and enjoyed the company of the folks. It was a blast.
You take music all over to all kinds of different venues, don't you?
I really do. Everything from bars in Plain to assisted livings in Janesville to the King Veterans Home up in King, Wisconsin. So I'm all over the place.
You are, and you do a lot of important appearances too. Tell me about the one you're going to be doing later today.
So I am a strong supporter of the local Farmer Angel Network. I lost my grandfather to suicide in 1947, and their mission, of course, is to work with farming communities and farmers and suicide prevention, and then helping families of those who might be victims.
You'll be playing later today, then?
They have a luncheon in Wanawak at noon, so I'm going to be singing for my supper, if you will, my dinner anyway, up there for the folks that are there to support the organization.
Tell us a little bit about your background, Randy, if you would.
So I grew up in Pennsylvania. I grew up in a small town, 8 communities in my high school, so you knew every dog by its bark. And the only bad thing is kind of like growing up here. If you do something bad while you're walking home, everybody comes out on their porch and yells at you. And so I'm sure in the years you've been here, you've seen this town explode. Richland Center's gotten so huge. But went in the Air Force and got out for a few years and went to college in Watertown here in Wisconsin, and then went back in the Air Force Reserve and became a recruiter for the Reserve and spent the remainder of my 24 years in recruiting. 10 of those years here in Wisconsin, in Milwaukee and Green Bay. And my daughter married a boy from Wanakee. They live in Cross Plains, so we moved here from Springfield, Missouri in 2023 in the middle of January. You only move to Wisconsin in the winter for one reason, and that's grandkids.
That's a good reason.
That's right. It is, absolutely. But I love living here because it reminds me so much of growing up. And I said 2 things Pennsylvania has in common. Back before first day of deer hunting was always on a Saturday. It used to be different days of the week. Well, the school was closed because we were hunting. And the other thing is, no matter how small the unincorporated town is in Wisconsin or Pennsylvania, there's a bar there.
Yes, there is. And you've driven through a lot of those small towns in Wisconsin, haven't you?
Absolutely, yep. All the way to La Crosse, go down to Dubuque a couple of times a year, and up to King, like I say, up to Wausau area. So I love it. And living as a recruiter for 5 years in Green Bay, it was everything from Iron River to Iron Mountain to Marquette, Michigan.
You've played for some military events as well, haven't you?
Yeah, I've sung the national anthem about 200 times in uniform. Had the privilege of singing with Neil McCoy and Tracy Byrd at the 50th anniversary of NASCAR. And ironically, I sang My Girl. And Neil said, I don't know how we're going to follow that. He was a very gracious man. But it's been a real blast to be back. And mainly my world is assisted livings, memory cares, senior centers, VFWs. But on occasion, get to do some great things like the show coming up here in Baraboo.
Indeed, the Baraboo area senior citizens bringing in for a Bobby's tribute. Bobby Darin and Bobby Vinton on February 15th. I'm guessing you're a fan of both of those gentlemen.
Oh, I love those guys. I've been a Bobby Darin fan since I was a kid. I started loving oldies and rock and roll when I was 13. I fell in love with Heart and Soul by the Cleftones. And my mom said, "You're born 20 years too late." So my friends and I really put together a little band and played some high school reunions in the 70s, and I've been singing that stuff ever since. So both of those guys have such interesting backgrounds, very similar in both their musical ability and their interpretation of songs, but very different in how they grew up.
Bobby Darin, certainly kind of a sad story.
Very sad.
He lived a short life, didn't he?
He did. There's several books written about him. One I love is called On Borrowed Time, and had rheumatic fever 5 times by the time he was 9, and overheard the doctor saying he probably won't live past 16. So I just read something that said he used that as the anvil to forge his career, because he said, I'm not wasting time. And he was blessed, he felt, in his life to get to 37 before he passed.
And he sang quite a variety of music, but he really kind of hit a home run when he did Mac the Knife and some of those things.
Absolutely. And, he started in 58, did Splish Splash, co-written by Gene Murray. That's a made-up name. Murray the K was his best friend. And he was at his house, and Gene, his mother, called and said, I got a great idea for a song. And she was a failed songwriter. And Murray said, what is it? She said, Splish Splash, Take a Bath. Legend tells us that Bobby wrote the song in 12 minutes. But he wanted to give them credit for being co-writers, but he couldn't use Murray's name because of payola, those schemes with radio. So he combined their names and put co-written by Gene Murray. So that was his big launch. Had a huge year in 1958. Then 59, after Queen of the Hop and after Dream Lover was a million seller, he said, I want to do an album of standards. And Atlantic Records said, you're crazy. You just had these great hits. And he said, no. He said, I want to be as famous as Sinatra. I love Sinatra and Bennett and Perry Como. And so he did. And he interpreted Mac the Knife, which was a German opera written, 100 years before. And wow, that was a million seller. That became his theme song for the rest of his life.
Yeah, incredible, and a great stylist too, wasn't he?
Oh my, such an interpreter, and he could play piano and he could play drums and vibraphone, and he'd incorporate them all into a show. So he was very meticulous in working with his musicians and audience, or his orchestras, on putting together just every fabric. Written 150 songs, 5 music scores that he scored himself, and two-time Grammy winner. Academy Award nomination, so just was on fast burn his whole life.
The other Bobby Vinton, I know a lot about him. Actually, I've had the chance to meet him a couple of times over the years, and uncanny that he actually remembered me after like about 10 years or something like that.
Both of those guys were really high IQ. I mean,
yes.
Bobby Darin had a 137 IQ, so he was a Mensa member. And I think Bobby Vinton was about close to that 120-something when... here's another guy, grew up in Cannonsburg, Pennsylvania, the home of Perry Como, and his parents paid him $0.25 to practice his clarinet. His dad was a mechanic for Coca-Cola, but he had a big band, Stan Vinton's band, and by the time Bobby was 10, he was playing in the band. And the other band members said, we want Bobby to play, he's really good on the licorice stick over there, the old Benny Goodman reference. So that's really what launched him in the music. And then at 15, he had his own big band and used that money he made to go to Duquesne University, get his degree in musical composition. Then Uncle Sam came calling. He got drafted, went to Japan as a chaplain's assistant in the Army. And he said, that's where I learned one thing that everybody in the military has in common. No matter if you're stationed in the next town, the next state, or another country, you're going to get lonely. So that's where he wrote Mr. Lonely.
Mr. Lonely.
Yeah.
Big hit.
Yeah, big hit.
Yeah.
Huge.
The impressive thing with him that I remember seeing him in concert is that he would have this part of the show where he would go around and play every single instrument.
It was amazing.
And not just play it. I mean, take the lead, and it's like, whoa, that guy
He did. He would
play.
do that with the sax and the clarinet and the trumpet and the piano, and just amazing. Yes, he was just, a fascinating entertainer. And, of course, his probably last big hit was My Melody of Love, which was a salute to his Polish heritage at the time where everybody in America was telling Polish jokes. They used another word for it. But he said so many people started coming to concerts in native costume, or they had Polish flags, and said, I was ashamed of being Polish, but I'm not now. So he still lives on. He's 91 this year down in Florida. But what an amazing guy. Amazing guy.
Yeah, and some great songs through the years. So tell me how the show works, Randy, when you're performing. Do you have one part of the show Bobby Darin, one part Bobby Vinton? How does it work?
I do. I call myself an edutainer because I like to tell these little snippets before I sing the songs. So even though the first part is Bobby Vinton, I start with Bobby Darin's opening song, which is called As Long as I'm Singing. And he opened his shows with that, and he said, man, as long as I'm singing, everything's swinging, So we talked a little bit about that, and then we talked about Bobby Vinton's background, and we launched right into Roses Are Red, which he found on a rejection pile at Epic Records, and that was his first number one in '62. That same year is when he recorded Mr. Lonely on that same date that he was recording. But for some reason, Epic Records wanted Buddy Greco to have that song. It was a miserable flop. So for 2 years, Bobby built up his repertoire of number ones and big hits. Everything Love you can think of, he was singing. In '64, they said they want to do a greatest hits album. He said, I want Mr. Lonely on it. Okay, that became his number one in '64. So
yeah, he pushed the Beatles back out of the way with that song,
it was There I Said It Again was January 8th, became number one. When the Beatles showed up February 9th, he kind of fell off the face.
Most American
I was going to say, asked Ricky Nelson. He had just signed $1 million contract for 10 years with Columbia. And they came back and said, I think we need to renegotiate because he couldn't get into the top 50, let alone the top 10.
Yeah, right.
It's amazing.
It was a different time, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
So the show is coming up on the 15th, Randy, and how can people get tickets for that?
Call the Baraboo Senior Center. I don't have the number in front of me. You do there.
Well, let me see. 608-356-8464.
This is a noon show, so for those of us who are a little more mature, which is a politically correct word for us being a senior, great time to come. So the proceeds go to the senior center. Noon show, a noon dinner. That $30 buys you a pretty big meal, and then also my show will be about an hour and 15, something like that, at 1:00.
So you sing all the favorite hits?
I do everything, and some unknown ones too.
Really?
My favorite song of Bobby Darin's is probably either More, which 150 artists recorded.
Okay.
And that was in his standards era. But I closed the show with The Curtain Falls, which he closed his shows with too. So when you get a chance, go find that on YouTube because it's such a great song about talking about appreciation. It's kind of like Neil McCoy's I'm Your Greatest Fan, where he talks about how the audience is what makes him. He says, I hope you're smiling as you're filing out the door. And so it's just a fantastic song. But, yep, I do, well, of course, Dream Lover and Mac the Knife and Beyond the Sea. And for Bobby Vinton, it's There I Said It Again and Please Love Me Forever and the color songs, I call them, Roses Are Red and Blue Velvet, which was a big Tony Bennett hit in 1952. So I love the fact that these guys, like the Duprees, would do with the late 40s, early 50s songs. They'd reinterpret them for a modern audience and make them hits, and that legacy lived on. Actually, Bobby Darin was so enamored with Johnny Mercer, he recorded an album with Johnny Mercer in '62. They bantered back and forth on the album and sing together and did a couple TV shows. A little known fact about Bobby Darin is he was a great impersonator. And there is a YouTube of Jimmy Durante coming on the stage singing Inka-Dinka-Doo. Then the real Jimmy Durante comes out and says, wait a minute, that's my song. It was Bobby Darin. You wouldn't recognize him. He was so good at that. But I think it's that great musician's ear, that you can tune into those nuances.
Yeah. So. It's easy for us to sit here and you and I of a certain age talking about, this is real music and that kind of thing. I mean, I like all kinds of music, but the difference from then and now is there's the melodies. They're so melodic, all those songs.
The other side, too, is I just watched somebody review the Grammys. There's a lot of the Grammy nominations that had 11 writers, and some of them were interpretations of old melodies. Right. So they just took the music, and it took 11 of you to write these lyrics. So I think that's the other thing is that we lost something with what I call the Brill building effect with Carole King and Neil Diamond and Neil Sedaka. And by the way, Neil Sedaka is playing the piano on Dream Lover.
Oh, I like Neil Sedaka too.
Yeah, he's amazing. Still at it, still singing away, doing concerts. The guy that amazes me though for ages is Little Anthony.
Oh, yes.
He'll be 91. Going. He was just up at the Dells for the Happy Together tour and a little insider baseball. So I know the guy who owns the Del Vikings, come go with me, sings with them. And I asked Kenny, I said, you've been on these cruises with Anthony all the time. I said, why is he still doing this? He said, well, he loves it. But he also has a lot of ex-wives, so he needs the money.
Well, everybody's got
at 91.
Yeah. The amazing thing with him is that, he had all these upper register songs, and he still hits the notes.
He still is on the same key.
Right.
It just, when you hear that stuff, outside looking in, when he's in that the ceiling, I'm like, wow, I mean, just amazing.
Yep, he locks in.
When I sing his songs, I got to lower them. I'll tell you that.
It's interesting, Randy, you mentioned Neil McCoy, too. We've done concerts with him. And what he has in common with the other guys is the fact that stage presence. I think a lot of the times that's what these guys had. A lot of entertainers just stand up there and sing their songs and look to the floor. They don't engage the audience.
I think about Neil McCoy when he was at his peak with Wink and songs like that.
Right.
He did the hillbilly rap. And I got to see that live. He came out in his bibs and his hat turned around and come and listen to a story about him.
Man named
So
Jed.
you're right. That's why he was Entertainer of the Year many times. And he just did his 10,000th Pledge of Allegiance for the last 10 years. Every single day he did the Pledge of Allegiance live on YouTube or on another platform. So yeah, just an amazing guy. When you talk to him, I mean, he told me, man, I prayed a lot in the early days because for 7 years we had no hit. And he said, I'm carrying all these guys with me saying, God, I don't know what we're going to do to feed one another. And he said, we played every bar and hole in the wall that we could. So just a very humble man who's so, like you said, he's not just a singer. And Tim, my friend who was Blake Shelton's guitarist for 10 years, says, you could be a mediocre singer today in Nashville because they'll make you sound fantastic. But I think Neil has that stage presence. And then for him to write that song, like I said, I'm your biggest fan, which he closes his shows with saying, I came for you guys. You guys stand in line and spend your money. And so just that sense of appreciation it's kind of lacking, I think, in Hollywood and in music in general.
Indeed. Randy Plunket, our guest, we're talking about the upcoming show for the Baraboo Area Senior Citizen Organization, the Bobby's Tribute. In fact, when we come back, we'll play a little bit of Randy interpreting a Bobby Darin song.
Sounds great.
Yeah. The morning show continues in a moment.
Somewhere beyond the sea, somewhere waiting for me, my lover stands on golden sands and watches the ships that go sailing. Somewhere beyond the sea, well, she's there waiting for me. If I could fly like birds on high, then straight to her arms I'd go sailing. It's far beyond the star, it's near beyond the moon. I know beyond a doubt my heart will lead me there soon. Hey, we'll meet beyond the shore, we'll kiss just as before. Happy we'll be beyond the sea, and never again I'll go sailing. shore. We'll kiss just as before. Happy we'll be beyond the sea, and never again I'll go sailing. No more sailing. So long sailing. Bye-bye sailing. Moving on out now, Captain.
Oh, here we go. Randy Plunket on WRCO Radio with his version of Beyond the Sea. Well done, my friend. I like that.
Hey, thank you very much. It's a great honor to be able to sing those standards and bring back memories. You know, I have a show called Remember with Randy, and my goal is to bring back great memories through great music. And so it's fun. It's fun, especially like in a memory care where you see somebody come to life because we know the power of music and memory. And yeah, it's great.
We have talked about that on this program as well, and I know with my own mother it was the same thing. Music, some memories of songs was kind of like the last thing that she could hold on to. It's pretty powerful, isn't it?
I agree, and you know, I encourage folks who may have a loved one who suffers from dementia or Alzheimer's disease, get music in their room. Just have it in there. Have the songs that they love to sing and knew. And there's so many great stories about people that come back to life, you know, because they link that memory with that sound, that music. So important.
Beyond the Sea, I think that might be my favorite Bobby Darin song. That's maybe, I don't know if it's his best known one, but it's a good one.
I think so too. Probably Mac the Knight sold a little more, but they were at the same time on the same album called That's All, where he interpreted that song too. So that was his Standards album in '59 that everybody said, you're nuts. Nobody's going to listen to this. Same thing with Bobby Vinton with Roses Are Red. He was a good friend of Tony Orlando's who said, you're crazy if you're not going to sing this. Are you nuts? And also Dick Clark told him, you should ditch this. That's no good. But hey, who knows? Folks love it, and they still love it today.
Went to number one, so
that's right. Absolutely,
argue.
That's right. Absolutely.
You do a show with all the Bobbies that I can think of too, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I sing Robert Rigarelli. We know him as Bobby Rydell from Philadelphia, and then Bobby V. Interesting story. Bobby V. got his start the day the music died, February 3rd, 1959, because in Moorhead, Minnesota, where the Winter Dance Party went to, they were without their headliners. So they got Bobby and his brother. He tells a story. He said, we went down an audition. I was 15. Robert Valine's his real name. And he said, we're standing behind the curtain, and Dion and the Belmonts are closing at the front. They're getting rid of all of their stuff and getting out of the way. A guy comes running up and says, what's the name of your group? He said, well, we were 2 weeks old. And he said, I looked at the floor in panic and said, we're the Shadows. Tell them we're Bobby V and the Shadows. And so that's what they did. And, you know, that launched his career. And he said, I wanted to be at the Armory for one reason, Buddy Holly. And so he did 2 albums with the Crickets and basically gave all the money to the Crickets. Just one of those kind of, like you said, you know him, a gracious man who felt like, I'm so honored to be able to do this. So Bobby V, Bobby Vinton, Bobby Rydell, Bobby Darin, and then, of course, we just talked about Bobby Day, and you can tell the folks when they say, who's Bobby Day? What was he famous for, Phil?
Rockin' Robin.
That's right.
And he did Over and Over, which
Over and Over.
Dave Clark 5 covered that one. So, yeah,
that's right.
Good stuff. You don't do Bobby Sherman, though.
Oh, yes, I do.
Do you really?
Yeah, sometimes it's easy come, easy go. It depends on what the venue's like.
That's fun. So you play all these songs and, kind of bring back a lot of memories for folks. And, another thing I've noticed is it's not just for people of a certain age. You've got a younger group that likes these melodic songs.
Absolutely do. I think a good example of that is the response to that movie that Tom Hanks did, That Thing You Do, which was, he helped write some of those songs. I was singing That Thing You Do on the way here. How many folks came out to that, and how many young people got interested in those, songs from the 60s and then the 50s that they had never heard or knew before. So big following that way.
There is a big following right now for tribute artists. Could you speak on that a little bit?
Yes, I mean the Legendary Theater up in the Dells. That's basically all they have is tribute artists, and that's my goal. Performing Arts Center, I'm talking to you. I'd love to come out here and do my tribute show for your folks. I'd do it as a fundraiser, but there are so many folks. I have a friend who is a Johnny Cash impersonator in Philadelphia who sings at the Legend Show down in Atlantic City, and huge following. So amazing that even a friend of mine who does Jerry Lewis with a Martin and Lewis revival, they pack the places out. So,
and you have Buddy Holly glasses on too, my friend.
I do. I love Buddy Holly. He was probably one of my favorite singers of all time. And it's interesting how, again, Buddy and Bobby Darin have these short lives that were so, I mean, the difference is for Buddy, it was so unexpected. For Bobby, it was every day in the back of his mind that I'm just privileged to be able to wake up and do what I love to do. But Buddy had such an impact. I mean, 2 days before, and you probably know this, he was in Clear Lake, Iowa. He was in Superior, Wisconsin, Duluth, Minnesota. And that's where Bob Dylan saw him. Drove down from Hibbing 100 miles in the snow, and he said, that's what I want to do. So he had that influence on him. And, of course, the Beatles saw him on the Palladium Playhouse in England in 1958 on the TV show that was their equivalent of the Ed Sullivan Show. And the Stones, and even a kid named Reg, who turned out to be Elton John, saw that performance and said, that's what I want to do. So amazing guy.
Yeah, amazing impact those fellas had,
yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
So this year, 2026, are you starting to book up? You've got a few dates planned?
Yeah, I did the Colonial Club in Sun Prairie and this one here, so I'm booking more dates all the time. Most of my world, as I said, senior centers, assisted livings. I sing out here at the R House and Harvest Home here in Richland Center, and also down at the Pines. So love doing that, but I feel like I was born to do this. You know, I just in the closing song, "The Curtain Falls," which a lot of folks aren't familiar with for Bobby Darin, the last lines are, "People say I was made for this. Nothing else would I trade for this, and just think I get paid for this." And that's really where my heart is, to be able to do this and bring back memories of folks and just honor these artists for who they were.
When you're singing a song once in a while, are you kind of transferred back, like you're almost imagining you're that artist?
Except for one thing. Bobby Darin told someone, I want to be a dancer who's a singer. I'm not a dancer. I said, I tell this in my shows that I can do the 8th grade boy dance where we stood against the wall for 2 hours, scared to death to ask the girls to dance, and just swayed back and forth. So that's a part I'm really working on because it was such a big part of his shows. He was so good at just making everything so effortless, but that's because he worked and worked and worked.
Yeah, it took a lot of work, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
For all of them, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Bobby Vinton too. I mean, he did a lot of the arranging for his, and both of them were so open to suggestions from their orchestras and bands, where a lot of the big names are not. They would say, "What about this? And what about that? Let's change it to this chord." And he'd be, "That's great. Let's do that. Put it in there." So I think that coachable spirit is what makes people successful.
Most definitely. Well, we hope a lot of people will come out, get the tickets for the upcoming show. It's the 15th of February. And anything else you'd like to add about that show, Randy?
No, just the Baraboo Center is so great to have me in the Baraboo Arts and Convention Center. Great folks. But I'm the Senior Center, a place I play a lot. And I love the fact that the tickets are going to them. So give that phone number again, Phil.
I sure will, Randy. 608-356-8464. And we also we had a caller saying that little Anthony wasn't as old as we said he was. So I guess maybe conflicting.
It could be, sure. Even at 85, if that's what he was, he's still doing it.
He's still going strong.
That's right.
Yeah,
right. Well, thanks for the correction. But.
Yeah, no problem. Well, and that's the other thing. It's amazing that, the Rolling Stones are still playing, and somehow, and Willie Nelson, he's in his 90s.
It's amazing. And it's funny because I went to one of those Pittsburgh concerts in Philadelphia that you see on National Public television.
Oh, sure.
And it was amazing. Out comes the Orioles, who I'm like, who are they? Who are they? And one fellow was holding on to the guy in front of him, and he said, "This was our biggest hit. We've been together since 1947. This is like 2003. And I thought, this is not going to be good, just by listening to his voice. And he got in the mic and he went, "You saw me crying in the chat." And he went, the place went nuts. And we were walking out the door, and I heard a friend of mine say to somebody, "Man, this was a wow concert." I said, "Yeah, it was pretty cool." He said, "Well, I mean wheelchairs, oxygen bottles, and walkers." And I said, "I can relate to that because, I'm a senior. And if you're bringing back memories and bringing back things from the youth, it's like when I sing what I call submarine races songs, like Since I Don't Have You. I said, remember those cars that were the last row of the drive-in that all the windows would get steamed up? And folks laugh because if they weren't in that car, they remember seeing it. I don't think they were watching the movie.
They wanted to be in that car if they weren't, maybe. Yeah,
That's right. Pretty much.
Well, keep up the good work, Randy. Keep bringing joy to people, because that's what you do.
Same to you, man. You're a legend here, and I appreciate the fact that you are so supportive of everything local. And anybody who asks you to do anything, Phil, you're there for them. Farmers Angels Network said to say hello to you because we know you're a big supporter of theirs as well. So I'll carry with me your greetings to them at noon.
Appreciate that, Randy.
Yes, sir.
You bet. And come back and see us again real soon.
We'd love to.
Hope a lot of people will come out and see you on the 15th of February in Baraboo for the Bobby's Tribute Show.